Well, and that was kind of where I wanted to go next. Was kind of, it's interesting in the trumpet world, at least. I don't know if it's like this in the saxophone world or in woodwinds, but usually when injuries start manifesting themselves or bad habits, usually the rhetoric is to go to the person first and the technique first, which I think is 9 chances out of 10, at least for trumpet players, usually the issue. But then there is that concept of the equipment, right, that you were talking about, that was just causing you to overcompensate with things. And so what would be your advice for educators and for, just any musician, any woodwind player, as they are starting musicians out, or from an equipment standpoint and injury prevention standpoint, what would be your advice for educators in that respect of equipment and just setting up musicians for success rather than injury?
Yeah, well, I think it's challenging in the respect that if you have a band program, you're dealing with a lot of instruments, you're dealing with a lot of mouthpieces, reeds, brass mouthpieces, different sized faces. I mean, you're kind of looking for the middle of the bell curve, from the bell curve is this way, I guess, but kind of the middle of it there. So it's challenging. And when somebody's having a real issue, hopefully, a director is able to play an instrument well enough that's not their main instrument, that they can at least get a sound out of it, and for brass instruments, maybe they have a couple other mouthpieces to try from that the student might go, oh God, this is so much easier. Might be the cup size, might be the depth, might be any number of different things for a brass instrument. For a saxophonist or a clarinetist, less so flute, because flute is just, it's just a solid piece of metal. Reed size will make a difference. Reed placement will make a difference. If the instrument is leaking, it's very difficult to make a sound. So people start compensating. It's a real challenge. So, looking at equipment is important, but also teaching. Excuse me. Sorry, just getting over a cold. I still get a little bit of a cough. Teaching students the art of the fundamentals, I think, is really important, because if you're teaching people how to breathe correctly, in particular, decent posture, it doesn't have to be perfect, but decent. Sound production, the consistency of sound production is much more manageable if people understand where to breathe from. So some of the exercises that I do with students that will transform a band literally instantaneously. It's not like 6 weeks down the road or anything like that, but we do these breathing exercises. And one of the reasons that I learned this is that when I was in high school, I went to school in New Hampshire for high school, and there was a lot of snow. It was cold. Woodwinds sound awful in that weather. And so our instructor, this guy named Doug Patch, moved all the woodwinds to brass. And so I played sousaphone for 3 years in high school in marching band.
Oh, wow.
And one of the ways that one of the guys taught me wind production is we took a sheet of paper and we put it up against a wall, and I had to keep it there with my breath from real close, right? To really understand the nature of the breath, the support of the breath that the sousaphone needed. And so I kind of incorporate that idea in that I'll have students put their hand about 3 inches away from their mouth, and I'll have them pretend like it's a birthday cake and they're trying to blow out all the candles in one breath without puffing the cheeks. And so you can hear the wind here. right? And so I'm not puffing. So we'll do that a few times. And then I'll say, okay, now put your hand on the spot of your body when you do it this time where you feel the pressure. And try it with me. And it should be here between the ribs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel it there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so then what I'll do is I'll say, I want you to pretend like you're yelling at somebody across the room to get their attention. Hey, 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 right? I said, put your hand in that same place. Hey, hey. Try it a couple of times.
Hey, hey, hey.
Even a little bit more forceful because they're on the other side of the room.
Hey, hey, hey.
Right? And so do you feel that twitch of the muscles, right?
Yep.
And so I tell them, I said, that's where you have to engage, right? Playing an instrument is the whole body. A lot of times we think of playing instruments using the tip of the tongue, tip of the lips, tip of the reed, tip of the sticks, tip of the mallets. It's tip, 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 right? Rather than understanding that it's a whole body experience. Just like listening, it's a whole body experience. So to engage the body in sound production, in my opinion, is essential to having a good sound, to having a good supported sound. And this is something that I think that band directors should be working on with their students. Some are, some aren't, but I think it's essential. So if I'm in working with a big band, one of the things that I'll do is I'll give them a chord. So say a B-flat 7 concert chord. So I'll give them their notes, and I say, you can pick any of these notes you want. And I said, I'm going to give you a placement within 4 bars. It might be the end of 3. 1, 2, 3, bop, right? And I want you to accent and play that part of the beat, that accent of the beat, engaging your body here. And so I'll just have the rhythm section groove, and I'll kind of throw this at them. And we do this exercise where they're basically saying, hey, with their sound, right? And I get them doing it soft. I get them doing it loud. Get them doing it in different parts of the beat also. And this is a really great warm-up because this basically forces them to engage their body to play these accents, right? And so once they start playing the tune, if they're engaging from there, it changes everything about the sound. And I've thought about this for years. I remember I saw, I think it was on PBS many, many years ago. It was Wynton Marsalis, and I believe it was Kathleen Battle. They were doing something, I think it was Carnegie Hall, big concert. They both had their teachers there. During the break, they go to their respective dressing rooms, and the very first thing that both their teachers said, very first thing, you're not supporting your sound. You're not breathing right. And I was like, whoa, that is super heavy.
Yeah.
Because you've got 2 of the greatest musicians on the planet,
At the
and their
greatest venue.
teachers are telling them, you're not supporting your sound. You're not getting full resonance because you're not supporting your sound. So that's how important breath is. And once students understand that, it can be worked on. It can be taught very easily. And again, it will change, excuse me, it'll change the way the instrument sounds immediately. And people will ask me sometimes, I'll be working with a band. They'll be like, man, how did you do that? And I said, I didn't do anything. They did it all. I said, I just gave them the tools to do it.
Absolutely.
And I tell the band that also. I say, you got to remember that I didn't do this for you. You guys did this. The reason you sound so good right now is because you're thinking about the support. You're thinking about engaging the body. Everything else will fall into place once you understand that. And you have to listen. I think that those 2 things, listening is the most important thing, right? And if you're listening, you'll understand that you're not supporting.
Right.
So if you can get those two things together, everything else falls into place, man. It changes articulation, changes intonation, changes the dynamics of the band, what I call emotional dynamics, because I think of dynamics as just being emotion, and not loud and soft, but it is loud and soft. It's a difference in volume, but I think of it as the emotional component of music, and but it changes all those things really instantaneously, and it's not much work to do it. You just have to engage, and a lot of times once they do that, you get done with the tune, and I'm like, who feels a little bit warm? And they all do. Why? Because they've been engaging their body. You know, it's like you've been walking a little faster than you normally walk, and like you're kind of like, okay, I'm gonna work my body a little bit here, and that has to be the habit, in my opinion.